Hello, welcome to my channel. If you're new, welcome. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you very much for coming back and watching our channel. My name is Ayanda. Apologies. I am with my baby girl here. Baby boy is sleeping. I will be talking about our decision to use a known donor as opposed to an anonymous donor. Alright, so if you are a subby and you've been around for a long time, you've been around from the times where we were still trying to conceive, and I was doing videos as to what has happened and the decision to use a anonymous donor, we've changed our minds. So initially I wanted a known donor, and I'll mention the reasons why as the video goes. And Babe was wanting an anonymous donor. So my main reason for wanting a known donor was that I wanted the kids to have an opportunity to know who their father is, even if the person wouldn't be active in their lives, like making decisions, but I did want them to know where their roots are. Because I know my father, and I couldn't imagine raising kids who have those questions as to who my father is and we couldn't answer. So I didn't want to be in that situation. Rather, I was willing to have a known donor so that we know where they come from, we know their surname, we know, because we are African at the end of the day. And for me, I am not very modern. I'm very traditional in the sense that she's falling asleep. In the sense that I do believe that you need to know where you come from, even if the relationship between you and your father is not great. But for you to just know where you come from, I think it's very important. So Bay's side, she felt that she grew up not knowing her father, but she grew up not knowing her father, and she was raised by her mother. And she felt that there's no need for the kids to know their father because they can. But then my point was, her mom was married and her father passed on. So this was a different situation. She knew her family from the father's side, regardless of whether she knew her father or not. So for me, I wanted my kids to have that opportunity to know who their father is, or even if it's the clan name or the surname, I wanted them to know. Even though the kids would be ours, in the sense that the surname they'll use would be my surname, because I'm the one who'll be pregnant. And I don't have an issue with the kids having a relationship with the donor side of the family, as long as the parental rights remain with us. So let me just get into the advantages and disadvantages real quick. Let me just get her to sleep. The first advantage of having a known donor is that you have more information on the person that you'll be using to be the donor for your kids. And this is information such as the hobbies, their career, their personality traits. You know, there's some information that just cannot be put in that profile that you get for an unknown donor. So when you have someone that you know, it's easier because you get to know. You can ask questions with regards to family history, and any intricate information that you want to know with regards to him, his family, and his own life. You can ask him because you have that direct access to him. So for us, that was one big advantage that pointed us to that direction. The second reason was that it is less expensive. I can't say it's 0 rands because you guys still pay for certain things, but it is less expensive than using an unknown donor. With a known donor, the only thing you pay for are the tests that you do initially, which are like STI, hepatitis, and all those tests, and then the first screening test, right? And then the second thing you pay for is the sperm tests. Yeah, they test the sperm first. They test for mobility. They test for mobility and sperm count, and then you pay for that. And then when you do the inseminations, you pay for the sperm wash. It does come up cheaper than using an anonymous donor, because with an anonymous donor you pay for you'd pay for the semen in vials, or yeah, it's called a vial, I think. And it's like a little bit of semen, like it was probably like 1 mil and you pay 2.5 for it, and you need at least 2 to try with artificial insemination, and 2 of them would be like 2 meals. And with a known donor, you can get the whole cum. Like if he ejaculates 5 or 10 meals, you get that. But obviously it has to be washed, and you get the remaining strong sperms, which is affordable. It's affordable. Another reason, which wasn't really the case for Bay and I, was you can use someone that you know from Bay's family. So let's say Bay had brothers. It would have been an option for us to try and get someone who has the same genes as her, but because she only has one brother and he's married, that was not an option. So this is an advantage for someone who is dating someone with brothers as an anonymous donor. I still had a bit of convincing and conflict within myself, because I was worried about, what if the person we're choosing is actually some parts related to us? Because you wouldn't know, because this is an anonymous person. You don't know their name, you don't know their surname, you just know their features. You have a picture of them when they were young, and what they like, what they don't like, what their hobbies, what they studied. You have a set of questions with regards to the family, but you actually don't know them. And for me, that was a worry, because things happen. You don't want your child in future getting married to their brother, and that would have been a possibility somehow, because you don't know this person. While there are advantages of having a known donor, there are also disadvantages of having a known donor. And trust me, we know this for facts. It's a fact. There are disadvantages, but the advantages far outweigh the disadvantages for us. The main disadvantage with having a known donor is that at times there might be conflict over parenting decisions. This would need to be discussed when you're still in the initial phases of deciding who you'll be using. So when you do the initial screen interviews, but this is like a friend, but you still do like interviews, because I didn't know this donor, Bay knew him, so I had questions. I think with us, the one thing I'd say has been a conflict. I'm sharing this, and this is about the only thing I'm going to share with regards to us, is that with regards to how we raise the kids, this was mentioned, that we will be the ones taking the decisions, and we don't necessarily we're not forcing him to raise the children with us, because we want the children. He already has his own, so we want to raise them, and we want to make the decisions with regards to how we raise them. I think the conflict then comes with regards to him and being open with him and his family. You want your donor to be able to have a conversation with his family before you guys have the kids. You need to also know the family before you guys decide to have the kids, if you will be having a known donor. I think that is important because with us being in the LGBTQ family, we need to know that the family we are inviting into our lives, because you are inviting an extra family into your lives, understands that this is the kind of family that we are somehow going to be part of, even if it's based on what we want as a couple, me and Tibato. But if there's that understanding initially, there won't be any conflicts. So there are certain things that you need to iron out in the beginning, because you need to do in the beginning, because you can't do it in the middle. So yeah, that's a disadvantage. Another disadvantage is that the donor may feel pressured. Sometimes it's easy to say yes, and then when things are starting to happen, you get cold feet. I think you need to create a safe space for the donor to be able to say, nope, you know what, I'm not comfortable or I'm not ready. And if he wants to back out, then he should be able to back out without having to feel any sort of pressure. I think those are the main disadvantages that I can think of at the moment, or that I wrote down. But then there are also advantages as to using an unknown donor. The one main advantage that I could pick up was that you have peace of mind. As parents, you can make any sort of decisions without second guessing yourselves or thinking about another person or what the other person would think. I think with that, it gives you the freedom to raise your child as you want, even though initially you would have had the conversation. But if there's no one to have the conversation with, I think it makes life much easier. Guys, that peace of mind is the only advantage I can think of, because I don't know another advantage that is there for using an unknown donor. I think there are more advantages for using someone you know that I can think of than using someone you don't know. But then there are disadvantages of using an anonymous donor. One being the costs. Obviously, it's much more expensive. Future communication is impossible. So if your kid at the age of 18, because I know there's an option where you can use a donor that says they allow you, or they allow the kid to communicate with them when they're 18. So if you use that option, then great. But if you use the unknown, like closed unknown, there's an open unknown, something like that, there's no way your kids can communicate or can find their donor. So that could be a complication if you do get to a point where your children want to know who their dad is. So that would be a disadvantage. Another disadvantage is actually finding a donor. That whole process of finding a donor is actually very, I'd say, stressful. For me, it was stressful. Firstly, you'd want someone with certain features. Initially, when we went that unknown donor routes, we wanted someone who has those features, right? So small lips, big nose, big eyes, big ears, you'd go with that. But then you find that in South Africa, we actually don't have that big of a pool of donors, unless you wanted to especially Black donors, unless you wanted to go the wide route, or you wanted to get a donor from America, the UK. There is the option to do that, which was not the case for us. We wanted a Black donor, and yeah, that the part of the stress came from that, in a sense that the sperm banks don't really have a lot of options, especially when you're looking for specific features in a donor. So that's something you have to think of. And you can be very specific with what you want, and if you can't get it, it becomes a whole lot of stress, of which with the known donor, weird enough, he had none of those features that we're looking for in the unknown donor. But I feel like his features were more aligned to mine. He has big nose, big lips, small eyes, or medium-sized eyes. He basically looks like me, but lighter. He's just, yeah, lighter. So that are the disadvantages and disadvantages. The disadvantages and advantages, hey guys, of having an unknown and known donor according to Yandi, aka Ayanda. And obviously there could be more, but for me that's just a small list that I wrote down based on my experience. And I hope you like this video and you have subscribed, because there will be more coming. Thank you for watching. Let me put her to sleep. She's sleeping. Bye.